Good evening, everyone, and welcome into the City Central Postgame live on STL Sports Central, presented by our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook, where the crown is yours. Another disappointing loss for St. Louis City SC. They fall 2-1, this time to Minnesota, after holding an early 1-0 lead. Two PKs come back to bite them in the ass late, and they lose this one 2-1. A disappointing game. Everyone in down spirits here at Energizer Park. Your thoughts on the game, Will?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, a match having 0 goals from the run of play is always a little bizarre in a 3-goal game, and it's really tough to walk away with 0 points after what, in my opinion, was probably the best half that they've played.
Not just your opinion. That's the opinion coming out of the locker room as well, according to the players in the postgame.
Yeah, I mean, the best half I think they've played all year. Maybe the very first match of the season against Colorado, maybe the second half with 3 goals against Galaxy on the road, but that's about it. The only things that come close. So it's tough to walk out of that one with no points.
Yeah, it's an absolutely devastating one, and that's the feel we got. I mean, Edward Leuven broke down one of the best halves of the season. He said it too. And we talked to Edward Leuven, and let's get to Eggplant Emoji here. If you guys want to get into the chat, we will get to your chats as well. It seems like each loss is more embarrassing than the last. I feel like I've let off this chat too many times with the squad needing a 2-goal lead late to get a result. That's the case. And honestly,
it was echoed in the press conference.
Phrasing it that way, I think, kind of breaks it a little bit, because yeah, you need to consistently score 2 goals to win in this league. That's the bottom line. That's why when they score 1, it's not about settling back and winning the game 1-0. It's about scoring that second goal. And as David Critchley says, killing the game. And that simply wasn't there. And I was glad to get into what Edward Leuven was talking about there. Is it a lack of patience? Is it a lack of direction in the final third? Because that's where their problem was. They were getting the ball into the final third, but there was no conviction to finish in the first half. And he used the word intentional. Intentionality was the big thing. He pointed out Devin Paddleford's cross that almost broke the game open to João Klaus when it was cleared off the line by the Minnesota defender. That kind of intentional play. He referenced whipping in crosses that have no intention and are just wasted plays. And he called them sloppy as well. These are all things we've looked at with City's problem in the final third. And that's maybe the biggest issue this entire season, is that no matter what coaches it's been, no matter what the opponent has been, City cannot put together a clean game in the final third, and that's why they've consistently lost so often.
Yeah, and I think kind of to piggyback onto that a little bit, Edward Leuven straight up said he said they can't play a full 90-minute game.
Yeah.
And he didn't say we haven't. He didn't say like we've struggled to do it.
They also haven't.
Yes. No. And my point is, he said they can't, not that they will do it later.
That's terrible.
He said we can't do it because, and that's just obviously when anyone who's speaking and English isn't their first language, some things are, you can't take them literally. But in this case, it makes you think that the mood in this locker room right now is just that they are genuinely unable to put together a 90-minute performance. It's not that they're literally unable to, it's that's how they feel. And when you feel that way, you're never going to do it. I mean, mentality is everything in professional sports. It really matters so much more than the general public may think, and anyone who has played a sport or anything like that will obviously know that to be true. The mentality in the locker room matters a lot, and it was described as very bad by Edward Leuven post-match tonight.
Cappy Girl comes into the chat back-to-back. When a game is decided literally on PKs, oof. Berkey was not happy. No, he was not, and you can't blame him there. She also said the subs were wild. I knew we would lose when Critch made those. I don't know. Okay, so the subs we're talking about.
I liked the Durkin sub at first. Hindsight's 2020. I obviously don't like it now.
He literally stops a goal happening in the play before he pulls the guy down. It was a mistake. It's inexcusable. But the other mistakes. I had somebody DM me, my buddy Alex, who's a big City fan, and he was like, "I don't get the Bescher sub," and it's like, everyone was dead tired.
Yeah, that's the only
you
reason
needed subs in the attack. So it's either Jean da Silva. Simon Bescher.
What if you have Mekhi Joyner?
Don't you start with
I'm gonna
me.
get him
Don't
going.
You start with me, Will Bratton.
If they had called Mekhi Joyner up, they would have had a better right wing option. And maybe if they weren't feeling Seti, they could have plugged Betcher in for Klaus and put him up top and let him do what he does instead of throwing him on that right wing role that drives me up an absolute wall. I mean, Rock and I have talked about this on camera, off camera, on social media, everywhere. I just, I
actually
it makes me insane.
I actually feel some conviction about my Besher takes after seeing Songbin Jung essentially constantly be cutting in from the right side when Songbin Jung's 2024 profile is classic out and out down the right wing winger. And the reason he didn't fit in Minnesota is because they play a two-striker form system and their wing backs are their width. And he played in a lot of spots today, Songbin Jung, like a secondary striker. He said he can do that, but I didn't expect that to be his role. I expected to see something different because what we've been seeing from St. Louis City's right middies this entire year has been strikers who are playing right middies. So I was a little surprised that we saw that game from Songbin Jung as much tonight. I thought it would be a little bit more out on the flanks, but maybe that's just because they needed to put as many bodies into the middle. David Critchley talked about it. They knew they weren't going to be able to win the game in the center, so they were trying to win games wide, but I think, they were successful in doing that to move the ball up. But as soon as you get into the final third, you can't keep winning the game in the width areas. You have to get the ball centrally, and so that's also one of the reasons I think they failed in the final third is they couldn't get the ball centrally, and maybe Songbin Jung's positioning is more of a case of this game and not his out-and-out role in the future, which would be why his acquisition is so important, because he should bring you something different than Besher and Seti. And he does. The cutting inside the right is a very narrow way to describe what he did this game. His creativity, his ability with the ball, his passing, those kind of things are very different than what Besher gives you. Besher's can give you the cutting in from the right side and getting behind the back line, but what he does with the ball afterwards is where he struggled this year, and we saw Songbin have a lot of success with the ball once he got in behind the line. Couple more inches here or there, he has a goal or two in the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I was really pleased with his performance, especially in the first half, but I did want to see him find more opportunities to get on the ball out wide and take those one-on-one opportunities. That's his bread and butter.
That's what I expected the entire when they added him. I was like, that's what we're going to see from him is that more what we thought we were going to get from Rasmus Alm, but didn't because of his injuries this year.
Right.
And that's not what we saw from him. He still had a great game, so I don't want to over criticize it. It was just it was unexpected. I want to say
it's coming from what Critch wants. Because he said post-game he thought the first half, in the first half, Songbin Jung was doing that exact thing. He was cutting inside. And Critch said the first half, everything was executed the way he wanted. And he was very particular about his instructions this week in training, as he told us this evening. And so obviously he wanted Songbin to do that. And that's fine, for Songbin to do that as instructed. But I don't want him to do that personally. I want him out in those wide spaces. I think it was almost like
I think this might be this week's tactical move.
I understand, but that's where I disagree with Critch, honestly, for the first time since he's joined on as interim head coach. Because I think that he should have had Tots in there and had Songbin on that wide option, because he was absolutely right. You can't win the game in the center of the pitch. But they should have been utilizing it and just sending overlapping runs and just mutilating Minnesota on those flanks and finding guys like Klaus and Betcher in the box. So
you have to give him some credit. So because we got an answer exactly on the Tots decision as well, which is Volum. It wasn't just about getting up the right side. Part of it was Volum's comfortability
with the hybrid
with the inverted fullback play where he was getting inside.
And that was vocab word coming out from David Critchley.
That was something we saw from both Paddleford and from Volum, and it made a lot more sense from Conrad Volum considering his player profile than it did Paddleford. But both times, very 2010. Or 2010, 2020, 2021, Pep Guardiola with the inverted fullbacks, where they're getting inside the middle and then they're underlapping over wider players in the attack. We really saw that early and often with Conrad Volum and Devin Paddleford. So it worked. You put Volum in a more comfortable spot because he's not usually wanting to be a back four right back. He's more of a right wing back, and we saw them playing with the deep three with Leuven. So they got Volum in good areas. And to your point, they knew they couldn't win the game in the center, but they had to impact the game centrally. And that's why getting those guys crashing into the central midfield and overloading the central midfield was part of the goal. And so I understand why they went with Volum over Tolland if that was part of the tactical move. And honestly, again, if everything comes down to we're not going to win this game in the center, we're gonna have to control it out wide. But the bottom line is, to score goals, you eventually have to win the ball in the central. So I understand their entire connection between build up and getting Songbin Jung in those areas. And speaking of the build up, Edward Leuven, incredible today. 14 passes into the final third.
Also, Tomasz Ostrak was fantastic, especially in possession, but he was good on both sides of the ball. And in, against the ball, he hasn't been as great lately. This match, dude looked like, he should be starting every single game if he played the way he did in this match. He was fantastic. I was beyond pleased with Tomas Ostrak.
His possession was incredible. His dribbling, his progressive carries were unbelievable. I have to eat some crow, although I will do it a little modified. I went back and forth with one of our loyal listeners in the offseason who said he wanted to see Tomas Ostrak and Edward Leuven as a starting pivot. I had my doubts, and my doubts were entirely centered on Edward Leuven's your most important playmaker. Do you want him to be have to be the defensive six the entire game, because Ostrak can't really be the defensive six. And so I was partially wrong in that I didn't expect this pivot to ever happen or to work as well as it did. So I was wrong. It worked very well. But the reason it worked is because Tomas Ostrak was not playing as the defensive six, and Edward Leuven was playing as the defensive six. And
that worked because about a year ago, when you said that, I would assume we didn't know by then Edward Leuven hadn't blatantly told us he wants to play that defensive six spot.
Well, we always know he likes to get. We always knew he liked doing that retreating into the back line thing. He did it with Hack at the end of the season last year. So we know he likes. It
depends when you said it. So I'm kind of guessing.
And we know he likes to get the ball at his feet in the back line and then turn and have the whole field in front of him. That's how he likes to be a playmaker. But and so him being the more defensive side, it worked because he was still effective at progressing the ball for City throughout the entire game. But then Tomas Ostrak wasn't the defensive six, and he was able to get forward. It's more of his mentality. It's not a skill thing; it's a mentality thing. And sometimes guys have defensive mentalities, and sometimes guys have offensive mentalities. But the point of why Ostrak works and why our listener was so adamant why Ostrak would work was because his ability to control the ball. And today, an absolute magician in the middle of the field at times for St. Louis City SC.
Yeah, he was just great. On the ball, in the dribble, he was able to create opportunities for St. Louis City to move the ball out of so a lot of times you'll divide the pitch vertically into five segments, right? Your central left and your left, and your central right and your right.
Central flanks channels.
Right, exactly. And he was able to provide so many half turns that allowed or just beating a guy, receiving the ball, and immediately his first touch is a cut into space. He's always first touch forward, which I love with Tomas Ostrak. He never has a negative first touch. It's always a positive first touch with him. And that's the number one thing you want to look for in a guy who can carry the ball like that. And he opened up the match for St. Louis because he allowed the ball to move around horizontally without cycling through our back line. And that saves so much time, and it makes Minnesota either have to run their tails off to keep up, which will eventually tire them out, or they have to kind of pick and choose their battles, which is what kind of happened. And it created a lot of chances for St. Louis kind of up the middle when Minnesota was in those half transitional moments of sliding horizontally back and forth. That was when City were able to expose them between the lines. And Tomas Ostrak himself was able to walk the ball right up the middle a couple of times, which was fantastic. So, I was more than pleased with his match tonight. And like I said, his defensive abilities were put on display tonight too, which I didn't really think he fully had in his arsenal. So shout out Tomas, because that was fantastic.
I'm gonna call them control abilities, not defensive abilities. You're listening to the City Central postgame right here on STL Sports Central. Make sure you hit that like, share, subscribe, and that bell button so you know when we're going live after all of these St. Louis moments. And of course, we're brought to you by our good friends DraftKings Sportsbook, where the crown is yours. Our promo code is STL Sports. Nothing beats relaxing on a hot summer day and watching baseball, or heck, getting out in a hot summer night and watching some soccer like we did tonight. And the simplest way to get into the action is to download the Pick 6 apps from DraftKings. It's crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for two or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. Pick 6 is available right here in Missouri, so don't miss out on all the fun as you get in on those Cardinal games. That's my favorite way to play. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6, and right now, new customers get a $25 bonus, $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. So you play $5, you're going to get 5 more plays at $5 each for $25 in bonus picks. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code STL Sports right there on the screen. STL Sports, that's code. For the new customers, you get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. STL Sports. Play $5, get $25 to play. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, a couple more chats as we come back here to the show because we're going to get out of here before they kick us out of here. Eggplant emoji. Do you expect more moves to be made in the transfer window? I'm glad you said moves and not acquisitions because my answer to this question is yes.
Yes.
I don't know if they're going to be acquisitions, though. I expect departures. I expect some changes in the roster, some things to flip around because we got to make sure Mekhi Joyner can be on the bench for that next game.
Rock is going to die on that.
You
hill.
mentioned it, not me. I
listen. I'm okay with it too. I want that to happen as well. But Rock is very high on this has to happen.
It should. It has
and
to.
I agree. I think we're going to see at least one departure, if not maybe even two. I think we're also probably going to see one more signing. We'll see. I was thinking maybe it would be a 6. Now I'm not quite so confident.
A lot of health there all of a sudden.
Yeah.
A lot of bodies.
Yeah.
Although you will not have bodies for your next matchup because Vollum picks up his another yellow card, which means he's yellow card capped. So he will be suspended for this next game. And then also Chris Durkin with the automatic red card.
3 games.
He's out for 3 games. And so you are actually kind of thin at 6 now. But I expect Leuven and Ostrak, Leuven and Alfie Morales with an Ostrak start as well, or Leuven and
I think it'll
Ostrak
be
with
like
an
a
Alfie
Leuven
sub.
Ostrak, but
they got 3 bodies to rotate, so they'll be fine. But overall, I don't think the 6 depth is as prominent as we were thinking a week ago. Although I still think a long-term one makes sense because Durkin, he just has too many moments, and I don't know if I just don't think Wallum's going to be here next year. And even so, he's not the most natural 6 you could get in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and Durkin's, he's pretty expensive, and he's coming off of U22 next year, so he's taking a fat hit to your cap. And I'm sure he gets a pay raise with his contract option. So he's a player that I would 1,000,000% if I was Lutz be looking to shop in the offseason or even currently now before his contract does expire so you get something for him. You're not just waiving him in free agency or something like that. And I would definitely expect, look, here's the thing. This team's going to get halfway blown up this winter. There's no doubt about that. But the question is, what move can they make now that may be beneficial to them versus waiting to the winter, right?
And you don't have to wait long for us to talk about that because we'll be breaking that down again on Boots on the Ground coming up midweek right here on STL Sports Central. One last chat here before we get out of here. Cappy Girl, is Berkey ever going to save a PK? I'll answer your question with a question. Is MLS going to actually enforce the rules on how you have to take penalty kicks? Because if you can stop and start, I feel like maybe he's never going to save one because it's an unfair advantage for the penalty kick taker. So maybe, if you're going to follow all your rules according to red cards and penalties and things like that, maybe follow your rule on how penalty kicks are actually being taken.
Shots fired. MLS, pro referees, your move. Ball's in your court. Matthew Rocchio has spoken.
You stop your momentum. I thought something was supposed to happen.
Yeah, it's supposed to be ruled a bad PK.
Oh, okay.
It's if you stop forward momentum,
and I saw that
forward progress.
I saw that 1.5 times today.
You can take
on 2
the
PKs.
Tiniest little steps ever, but as long as you maintain forward motion,
is forward motion. If my feet stop but my shoulders keep going forward, is that forward motion? Because that was the first penalty kick today.
Idea.
His feet stopped, and only maybe his shoulders kept going a little bit before he restarted his motion. That's my thing about PKs. I think Berkey would also probody rail against how those PKs were taken against him today.
Yeah, he wasn't happy in general tonight. I can guarantee you.
Why would he be?
He was probably the loudest and most upset person in that locker room this evening.
And again, he has a lot of reason to be angry. The bottom line is St. Louis City SC has not played a full 90-minute game this entire season. Even in the 4 wins, I would say not full 90-minute games. Their most emphatic win this year, the 3-0 win against Galaxy, maybe the least of their 90-minute games of their wins. So just this team doesn't play a full 90. That's why they're not going to be a playoff squad. That's why they're going to be at the bottom of the barrel at the end of the season. There are still things to look for. There are still things to talk about, and we will be covering them right here on City Central on the City Central postgame on any City Central shows we do on Boots on the Ground. We'll be talking about the good things to look at because we're going to be here. We're going to be talking about this team no matter what. And when they blow it up next year, at least half of the roster will still be here. So we'll have some things to reflect on when we look towards next year's roster. For tonight games, though, that's another loss. Not a lot to build on here. St. Louis City falls 2-1 thanks to 2 second-half penalty kicks. Their first-half penalty kick, though, Edward Leuven puts that one away. Not enough. They miss all the chances that they had in the first half, which were many and varied. And because of that wasteful first half and a second half where they could get nothing going, we are talking about another City loss in this episode. If you missed the full episode, you can go back to the YouTube and watch it. It'll be up wherever you get your podcast later tonight into tomorrow morning. And again, stay tuned for more City coverage right here on STL Sports Central for our midweek podcast, Boots on the Ground, coming up sometime midweek this week. That's Will Bratton. I'm Matthew Rocchio. Thank you so much to our sponsors at DraftKings Sportsbook, where the crown is yours. This has been the City Central postgame on STL Sports Central. Have a great rest of your night, St. Louis. And just in case you're watching this a little later, have a good rest of your morning.